Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 9, Episode 82. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thank you for tuning in this Monday, Steelers Nation. All right, Dave. AB's being weird. Bell might get tags. Patriots won the Super Bowl. Good show. Let's close things out, because I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, no, that's not the way this thing works. Yeah, and we'll get into each one of those topics along. Boy, I guess when you look back at last week, if you're a Steelers fan, could anything have gone any worse than what it did? You had the guys on Radio Row. You knew that some past and present Steelers players were gonna talk on Radio Row and gonna be asked the same old questions. And while most of them handled it okay. It's just stuff that was just mostly negative, if you will. Talking about the culture of the team and Antonio Brown and everything related to that. Mm-hmm. And then, you get into you get that behind you, 2 weeks worth of that. And plus you're sitting there having to chew on wondering if the Patriots are going to tie the Steelers for most Super Bowl wins. You get past that, and then you get into hopefully going into the weekend thinking, man, maybe something positive could come out of this with the Steelers, and maybe Alan Faneca can get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Well, that didn't happen. And then rewind quickly to Sunday, and the Patriots, it wasn't pretty, but it doesn't have to be. And now they're Super Bowl champions for a sixth time, which ties the Steelers. So, yeah, I understand why a lot of people probably have, not looking forward to turning on this podcast today and probably want to take a break from NFL and Steelers stuff for a week or two to come. But, that's not how we work.
We are the New Orleans of podcasts today. I just saw a tweet that New Orleans had the lowest Super Bowl rating of any market for obvious reasons. They were doing a parade, kind of a protest for that. So do you want to start with the Super Bowl, Dave? Is that where you want to kick things off with?
Oh, yeah, let's obviously start there. And, New Orleans, that'll teach the NFL.
Yeah, I'm sure they're really upset with the cash that Roger Goodell is probably swimming in a bathtub right now. Dave, with the Super Bowl, I know a lot of people will say it was a boring game, defensive 13-3. It was 3-3 at the end of the third quarter. But did you consider it a boring game, or were you entertained by seeing a more defensive, outcome, which is something unusual for a game like this?
I obviously like nice offensive play design and explosive plays. And look, I'm human. I like scoring. But at the same time, I love defense, and I was glad to finally see. Look, we've had all this talk all these years about NFL trying their best to make it a fantasy game and an arena football game, if you will, and be damned to scoreboard numbers. Let's get them up to where they're hitting triple digits up there at times. It was a bit refreshing to see defense dominate more in this, and look, make no mistake about it, we'll get into this. There was some bad quarterback play in here, but I think a lot of this bad quarterback play in this Super Bowl was a byproduct of some of these quarterbacks not knowing what they were looking at, more specifically, Jared Goff more so than Tom Brady. But even Tom Brady was confused quite a bit in this game, and I haven't, looked and seen, parsed any of what he have said post-game to acknowledge that. But I think, as Hines Ward said, you got to take your hat off and hand it to both defensive coordinators in this game. Obviously Wade Phillips and to much credit to Bill Belichick, who I think mostly calls the defense for the Patriots, and that's another topic I want to get into maybe if we have time later today. But no, I wasn't disappointed overall. The Rams left some plays out there on the field for sure. Had a chance to have a long touchdown that we'll talk about. And no, I wasn't disappointed. It just goes to show I wonder how many people were ready for me to talk about defensive adjusted net yards per passing attempt today, because once again, the lowest team, the team of the teams in the playoffs, the one with the lowest defensive adjusted net yards per passing attempt number came out the Super Bowl champion here, and I was not surprised one bit. I was a little bit surprised at the low scoring, which now I guess the lowest scoring Super Bowl ever. But yeah, not thoroughly disappointing.
Right, and I thought there was just quality defense being played. Even the Rams, getting that pick early on Brady on his first pass attempt. But I thought the largest reason for why the Patriots won this game was, one, they had their quintessential Patriots drive. They got a couple long balls to Gronk and the touchdown to Sony Michel to put them up 10-3. But defensively, they got interior pressure and the secondary made plays. And I tweeted this late last night, that for the Steelers to get to this level of wanting to come back in the Super Bowl, obviously they got to smooth things over with AB and figure out the stuff offensively. But in the secondary, they got to get guys with ball skills. I mean, you saw the McCourty great breakup on Cooks in the end zone, Gilmore's interception, which I know was induced by pressure, but the guy still made the play. Some of the breakups on Cooks on the other deep ball where he almost caught it. The secondary made plays on the football, and that's something that we haven't seen in Pittsburgh. But you couple that with a great interior pressure and a great pass rush and a great scheme, which the Patriots had. That's why they won that game. That's why Jared Goff looked as bad as he did in that Rams offense, so stuck in the mud. So if you're looking for that blueprint, which I know is going to be talked about a lot, what did the Steelers have to do to get back there? It's about finding those playmakers in the secondary, because that made all the difference.
Yeah, and being able to get pressure with 4 or less, like you said.
Yeah.
That played a big part in this, and I think when you go back and unlike most, I can't wait to get my hands on the All-22, because I think that's going to be a good game to look at when how to beat both these quarterbacks from a defensive standpoint. Because, like I said, I think both of them were confused early on in this game. Tom Brady certainly was. I mean, you're showing him things that look like that might be man principle, and then you're getting zone out of it. To confuse Brady going that direction, I mean, props off, to Wade Phillips there, and really, he was off, and the Rams, make no mistake about it too, the Rams were getting some pressure, as we thought they would be able to with their front four, but I think we saw early on in that game too, they didn't want, I talked about the other day how they don't, they didn't want Tom Brady dropping back and throwing all that much if they could help it. They came out running the football quite a bit as well. And I don't know what you think about the lack of usage by the Rams of using Todd Gurley. I thought, what the heck's up with there? And they continue to say that he's not injured. Now, Sean McVay, during his post-game press conference, I did listen to that. He took a lot of the blame, or all the blame, about how he didn't, never found a good rhythm and all like that. But make no mistake about it, the defenses did a great job of causing confusion to the opposing quarterbacks, and Jared Goff looked like a rookie in this game.
It was about adjustments, and that's the big reason why I picked New England. I'm sure that's the big reason why most people picked the Patriots, was when it comes down to the schematic component and the adjustment factor. When you have 2 weeks to prepare and you have a coaching staff like Bill Belichick and company, you just figured they were going to make the better and more quicker adjustments than what the Rams were going to be able to do, and that's really what happened. And the Patriots put together that one drive, and I talked about linebacker play and how important that was, and I think that generally came true this week. But as well as guys like Corey Littleton played for the Rams, the touchdown drive, they got Gronk on linebackers, on the Ekubaum kid, and then on Littleton to get him down to the 1 yard line. So they were able to get the matchups at the right time when they needed it the most, late in the fourth quarter, and finish that drive off. So to me, it was about who was going to make the better adjustments. That's generally how it goes. You have a long halftime in the Super Bowl. There's really a lot of time to make those actual adjustments, and that anytime it comes down to the coaching, which is what adjustments are, you're going to lean New England, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, you look at you mentioned the Gronk play on that fourth quarter touchdown drive there. They ran the same play. It looked like 2 or 3 times in a row there to make sure they got that matchup. And even Gronk talked about that play after the game. He said he couldn't remember if they had ran it the play before or 2 plays before, but he knew the second time that they called that play that Josh McDaniel called that play, he knew that ball was going to come to him. He said he knew that Tom Brady missed him open on the first one, so he knew that they were going to come back to him on that play. And we talked about Bruce Arians not wanting to call the same play twice way back 10 years ago in Super Bowl 43. Well, obviously the Patriots, they saw enough on tape that they knew if they could get out of a certain personnel grouping versus a certain defense they had seen enough throughout the game, they knew what they were going to get. And that just goes back to you talking about making the adjustments. And they did. And Brady, boy, what a nice pass that was, and what a nice, even tough contested catch that Gronk made. And you just had a feeling at that point right there, as soon as he made that catch to get him down to what was it, the 2-yard line, you just had a feeling that the game was pretty much over at that point. That at a minimum they were going to come away with a field goal, but you kind of knew they were going to get a touchdown at that point. And even though the Rams made another drive on down the field, their boy Goff looked shaky. He looked like he was staring down his receivers, and all it took was one play with some with a free runner on. What did they send, like 6 on that blitz on the interception there, and Goff just made a very, very poor decision and basically threw up a punt, if you will, and that was that.
Yeah, it was a cover 0 call, and I'm just reading a headline from the Monday Morning Quarterback, but it just said the Patriot strategy was sending in 2 defensive play calls and then checking in the one after, until there were 15 seconds left on the play clock, whenever the headset shut off for each side. So, because one of the Rams strategies has always been this year with McVay was that McVay would talk to Goff. They would get up to the line of scrimmage early, and then McVay would be able to talk to Goff, until there were 15 seconds left and really get him in the perfect play call. But for New England, it was, let's have 2 play calls, let's shift into one late after that 15 seconds. So, it's putting trust in your defense to communicate, and that really is what confused Jared Goff, because they weren't in the right play call really ever, and that was so unlike them compared to what happened during the regular season and during the playoffs. So, that's having trust in your guys. That's about good communication, and you're right, that interior pressure, all the twists and blitzes they ran. The one weakness for this Rams offensive line I thought was up the middle with guys like John Sullivan and especially Austin Blythe, the right guard, and they whooped on those guys time and time again, including for the interception was kind of a cover 0, just an all-out blitz, but really made life difficult on Jared Goff.
Boy, you talk about communication. That's certainly not one of the one of the Steelers' streaks, right? And we banged that, and this is nothing new. People that listen to the podcast, I mean, we banged on it. This year, definitely the last couple of years about the communication aspect, and this year you and I, really talked quite a bit about disguise, and I mean that speaks volume, and that's not surprising that Belichick would figure out something, start playing chess while the other team plays checkers, if you will, when it comes to, having 2 play calls called and at least getting in the better one of the 2 based on what you see breaking the huddle. And is this going to be a trend? I mean, should we see the Steelers offense and defense start taking more advantage of most of the initial play clock and waiting till the headsets cut off and kind of thing? We'll see. But that's just one of the few adjustments that I'm sure we're going to be talking about for the next week or 2 when it comes to the Patriots in this game.
Definitely, and you have to give the Patriots offensive line a ton of credit too, because I said it before the game that I think it's a really underrated starting 5, and largely speaking, they held the Rams defensive line in check. To take on Sue and Brockers and obviously Aaron Donald is a tough task. But Brady only sacked once, generally had a lot of time to throw in the pocket. So again, I think it's a really good 5 if Trent Brown and Thuney and Andrews and Shaq Mason and Marcus Cannon. And I think you talk about who was a better offensive line in this game. It sure as heck was the Patriots. They ran the ball more effectively. They gave Brady more time, and they made the plays when they had to, and the Rams simply did not.
Yeah, and I mean, make no mistake about it. You hold a team like the Patriots to 13 points. If I would have told you ahead of this that I guarantee you that the Patriots only scored 13 points, you're telling me the Rams won the game, probably.
Yep. If the Saints play that game, and it's a similar type of game, do the Saints win that one? I know it's hypothetical, but what's your take?
Yeah, because I think they got more talent on offense. I mean,
I agree.
I mean, Todd Gurley wasn't used. I mean, what you don't pay that guy that kind of money to have the limited usage that he had in these last two games. I don't care how creative you are on offense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but they're insisting that there's nothing wrong with Gurley. How do you pay a guy that kind of money and send out a 250-pound? What was the final snap count? Did you ever see the final? Let me pull that up.
I did not.
While we're talking. I'm sure that'll be up already here. I mean, people said they want to tune in to hear me. How many times I talk about defensive adjusted, adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat, and talk about how running backs are fungible. You're gonna get it, folks. I mean, let's see. Gurley played 43 snaps. Anderson 22. Did it feel like that?
Well, Gurley only touched the ball 10, 12 times, whatever the final number was.
Like 11, wasn't it?
Yeah, they just didn't get him the football. And in a low-scoring game, it's surprising. I think the Patriots were really all out on stopping the Rams' outside zone, which is what we talked about on Friday's show. But, yeah, what was it for Gurley here? 10 carries and 1 catch on 2 targets.
Right.
11 touches.
Now, I was a bit surprised that he almost exactly double snapped C.J. Anderson. It felt like C.J. Anderson was in the game more. But, I mean, well, look at this, too. How many plays did the Rams run in the first half? Like 22?
Yeah, somebody said that Maroon 5 was on the field more in the first half than the Rams offense. That was one of my favorite tweets of the night.
Yeah, that sure felt like it. Okay, I'm sure people didn't tune in to listen to the Patriots Depot podcast, but any other final thoughts on this game? I'm sure we're going to be discussing a little bit more, but I thought what happened to that like you said, the Rams offensive line. It's a good offensive line, but were they giving a little bit too much credit heading into this game?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I thought they had their weaknesses, especially that interior with Sullivan and Blythe. Blythe was an undersized guy out of Iowa that played with good technique, but a limited athlete that didn't have a whole lot of size. And I think, like I said before, or I've said in the past during the season, the Steelers defensive line coach, Carl Dunbar, has their fish of the week, which is the weakest offensive lineman that you should be winning against, the guy that you expect to take advantage of. And I'm sure they don't phrase it the same way in New England, but if there was a fish of the week, it was number 66, the right guard, Austin Blythe. And so that was the guy that they attacked relentlessly with inside linebacker blitz, with Hightower, with stunts and games and twists. That I think the Rams were just overwhelmed. And that was another reason to pick New England was this is old hat for the Patriots. They know what to expect. They know how this week works. They're not going to be fazed by the bright lights. And the Rams, I think, certainly were, and I believe Andrew Whitworth even admitted it, after the game, kind of talking about how many Patriot fans were there and just kind of how big the moment was. And that's understandable for a young team, a 33-year-old coach, a third-year quarterback, and a lot of guys that have not been in a moment quite like this. So, it's one of those things where they'll be better because of it, the Rams will. But your first go-around, and you got to do it against New England, it's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah, and we'll see what the Patriots always find a way to restock. We'll see what happens with the McCourty brothers if they come back. There's talk that Rob Gronkowski might hang it up. We'll see about that. I mean, they have no problems at turning over the bottom, like most teams, bottom third of their roster and all. John Simon, he only played 14 defensive snaps, but he sure showed up on the tape, I thought. Kyle Van Noy, where did that scoot of his come from? He could still get from point A to point B like nobody's business. I think Trey Flowers, a free agent, that's probably a guy that's going to get paid and play elsewhere for the Patriots next year. But look, they definitely don't have the loyalty that the Steelers do. I mean, Bill Belichick will, if your name isn't Tom Brady or Julian Edelman or Rob Gronkowski, he'll ship you right out of town in a heartbeat. So it'll be.
Well, he almost shipped Gronk. Gronk almost got dealt, so that tells you where it's at.
Yeah, and this time the roster included guys like Cordell Patterson and Dorsett and Burkhead, and you look at their it didn't look as exciting, especially once they lost Gordon throughout the year, and then defensive side of the ball they've always looked a little bit stronger there. But make no mistake, Belichick knows how to build a roster, and they're going to lose some guys during free agency this year, and they'll obviously draft. They even lost, didn't they? Lose Wynn, one of their early draft picks, to an Achilles or something early on in the year. So I hate to keep taking my hat off and hand it to Bill Belichick, but a lot of people left that Patriots team for dead, several times throughout the season, and they ended up winning it all.
One last Patriots or Super Bowl related question, Dave, then we'll move on to Steelers talk. I believe the answer is no to this, but a lot of talk about it. Is Julian Edelman a potential Hall of Famer in your eyes?
His stats aren't there yet. He's got the Super Bowl championships. If you're going to put a guy in for Super Bowl championships only, maybe, but no, I don't think he has the credentials yet.
All right, Dave, said enough Patriots talk. Do you have any final thoughts on Super Bowl 53?
Yeah, and like I said, I don't think Edelman has the credentials, and maybe we've great time to transition into the Hall of Fame and all like that. If we were to, I think we did kind of rank the offensive linemen getting in this year. Kevin Mawai would have been or was number 4 on my list, and but he was a highly decorated player during his career, which I think spanned 3 teams, and I think that played a big role in it. I think he's slightly more decorated, other than Super Bowl, than Alan Faneca. I think we both agreed that they were only going to let one offensive lineman in this time, and we were trying to wonder, was it going to be Faneca or Boselli? I don't think either of us gave much thought to Hutchinson or Mawai, but turn around and it's Mawai, and being as it is Mawai though, and Faneca didn't get in, I think this still bodes well for Faneca's chances in 2020. It's obviously disappointing. Look, I think if you're going to let Mawai in this time, you have to let Faneca in the same year. Obviously, it doesn't work that way, but I think this does bode well that it was Mawai for Faneca to get in 2020, and I don't think it bodes well for Tony Boselli.
Yeah, I don't want to disparage any particular player because they're all Hall of Fame worthy, and it's congratulations to Kevin Mawai. It was a great career, but I do wonder if, like you said, the exposure of playing for different teams, Faneca did as well, but also, more importantly, his work in the union and being kind of the face for that. I don't know if that played enough of a role to give him the edge, because all these guys made the top 10. We saw the cut down from 15 to 10. All 4 offensive linemen made the final 10, so it was a really close discussion, it seemed like. But yeah, Faneca is certainly deserving. I hope he gets in next year. It was disappointing because I really thought he had a legitimate chance to make it this year.
Yeah, but I think, too, and, to play devil's advocate here, Alex, I think when you go back and you look at Kevin Mawai's resume, it's not bad. Eight-time Pro Bowler, 7-time first-team All-Pro, and second-team All-Pro, on top of it there. So, this guy was a highly decorated. He played a couple more years longer than Faneca did as well too. So, he checked the longevity box. He checked the highly decorated box. So, when you look at him compared to Faneca, his decorations outside of not having a Super Bowl were a little bit more impressive. And I think that's maybe the way the voters went this time.
Yeah, and again, I totally understand it. Mawai's deserving. They're all deserving. I would have had him probably last on the list, but they're all great players, and I'm not going to be critical of one guy. I'm glad they got in. I'm disappointed, that Don Coryell, won't get in, but this was a concern of mine that we had talking before the show, Dave, and I don't want to be particularly mean to one guy because I don't know how the whole system works and we're just seeing pieces, but it feels like the people presenting these guys, especially Coryell, are just they just sound boring. They sound like the college kid I worked with a group project with, and he's just reading off the PowerPoint that he didn't prepare, and he's just doing it to get the C- grade. Like, it just feels like there's got to be more energy, and you wonder why some of those guys don't get in. It just feels like, it's like people don't have the passion that you need to fight for these names.
And we're only judging by 90-second clips, right?
Sure, yeah. But 90 seconds can tell you a lot. Like, I don't think there was a party being thrown right after that clip ended.
Right. Well, I mean, you're telling me a bunch of old sports writers, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of doing the old man shakes his fist at clouds kind of thing. But it just and I thought actually Ed was one of the better ones of the guys I listened to, and that's not exactly a high bar that I'm setting there. But it just feels like if you listen to the clips with the Pro Football Hall of Fame is tweeted about guys making their case, they have clips for everybody. Unless you're an obvious person like an Ed Reed, where that's a 2-minute conversation, or Tony Gonzalez, like you got to fight for these guys. You got to really explain and hammer that point home, and it just feel like that isn't always being accomplished.
I wonder how this thing look. I hate to sound morose here, but as some of these guys start dying off,
okay,
the guys that replace him, and of course we're in an age of analytics now. More so some of these guys starting to get on the ballot now. You have all their tape available to them. You have all the analytics available to you as well, too. I wonder how much of a difference this is going to make. I mean, we're starting to even come up with good stats now of how to rank offensive linemen and all. But still, there's going to be that cutoff, and Donnie Shell is going to be one of those guys that's out there for a long time, and until I think somebody makes a push on the outside for him that gets a groundswell. So, I thought about it long and hard this weekend, and I'm already crunched for time as it is. But I think I'm going to take it upon myself to kind of take up this Donnie Shell battle, and this Donnie Shell battle is not one that's going to be won by this time next year. I think it's going to be one that's going to take a couple years to be won. But unless some people on the outside don't start taking more of a role on this and getting this information in front of some of these voters, a la big campaign push, then it's not going to happen, I don't think. Because look how many guys are coming on the ballot new every year. And it's so hard for the older guys, especially guys like Shell that have been on the ballot a couple of times in the past, and I think didn't Shell, I know Shell made it to a finalist, the final 15 once, maybe even twice there in the last whatever since I think like 2002 or whatever. But they're going to get lost in the shuffle here because of analytics and look, we don't even have a full, and one of the things about trying to make a push to get Donnie Shell in is you're going to have to come up with a more complete stat line for him. The 51 interceptions look great on paper, especially when you compare it to a guy like Champ Bailey who had 52. And when you look at the decorations that Shell had versus Champ Bailey, I mean, there's no reason for Donnie Shell not to be in. But I mean, that's not good enough to get Donnie Shell in at this point. So I'm kind of going to take it upon myself over the next 2 years to maybe help make a better push for him. But it just goes back to what you're saying. Those guys in that room have to be a little bit more passionate about trying to get these guys in if they truly believe they get them in. And I suppose it's as political can be in that room. There's probably some sports writers that don't like other sports writers. Do you buy I guess it's a good time to switch to this. Do you buy an anti-Steelers bias?
No, I don't believe in anti-Steelers bias, but I do understand that, to get multiple guys from the same team in 1 year is going to be a challenge. Now, Denver did it this year, but that was an owner for one. And you look at next year's class, and, Troy's going to be on the ballot for the first time, and he better be in first ballot. It should be an Ed Reed type of discussion where it's not a discussion. Everyone recognizes it, says, yes, he deserves it. So is that going to hurt Franika's chances? I think potentially, to a degree, it will. And then you look at long-term outlook.
Wait. Just because just because not wanting to put two guys in from the same team, they've already done it 3 times already. The Hall, I mean, the committee has. If you go back over the years, so I don't. And even kind of not too long ago, didn't Dermontti Dawson and Jack Butler go in on the same ticket?
Well, I saw your post about that, but I have some pretty real disagreements with that idea because for a couple of them, like the Bradshaw and Blunt and Harris and Lambert, they were first ballot guys, and Faneca's not first ballot, so that's a different conversation. With John Henry Johnson, that's first 6 years weren't in Pittsburgh, and with Butler, he was senior committee. So you have all these kind of different little exceptions and slam dunk guys that I think it's a different equation then than it is now with Faneca, who's clearly a borderline guy, not on senior committee.
You consider Faneca a borderline guy?
I mean, obviously, it's been 5 years now. He's been a finalist 4 times, so he's not a slam dunk, and he's not been a long shot. So what else can you call him but borderline?
All right, Jerome Bettis, it took him how many tries to get in? How many times did it take Dermontti Dawson to get in?
Right, I'm saying Faneca can get in, and I think he should get in, but I think the fact that Troy's going to be on the ballot will hurt him because unless there are 2 slam dunk guys like there were with Franco and Bradshaw and Lambert and Ham, I think, whatever the list you had, it's going to be tough. I mean, and again, John Henry Johnson took a while to get in, but I think people remember him more for the $1 million backfield in San Fran than they do in Pittsburgh.
Let me ask you this: when you look at, and I hate to bring this up, I'm starting to wonder now. I mean, Ed Reed had the stats. He had the interception and all. Troy Polamalu he had half the. Are they going to be able to separate the safety position out? In other words, are they going to be able to separate Troy's highlight reel from his stats and games missed and all like that to put Troy in first ballot? Because
they better.
Because Ed Reed had 64 interceptions during his career, and Troy had 32. All right.
Yeah. Well, I understand, and it's position as they played, strong versus free. But I think.
But are those guys smart enough to differentiate that?
Yes. If they aren't, then revoke their credentials immediately. But I think they will. They are smart enough to understand the impact.
And what about the games Troy missed? Now Troy. Look, I mean, you have to. Troy's highlight reel has to be part of. If you were just, would it be tough for you if you could not see, Alex, and you had to present Troy's case from a statistical standpoint? Would it be tough? I mean, for somebody that's never seen an NFL game or whatnot, if you were trying to convince them versus the other safeties already in, and did you see my list of the other safeties that were put in? Several of those went in as cornerbacks as well too. You know, guys like Woodson and Lott, and I forget. You know, there's not a lot of safeties in there, and Ed Reed's obviously joined that list now. But how would you make the push for him to get in on a stats only?
Well, the good thing is it's not stats only, which is a positive thing, obviously. I think he has good numbers. I know he's not Ed Reed type numbers, but you look at the sacks, the forced fumbles, the interception is still 30-something. There's still nothing to scoff at. I think that in itself is a good case. But if someone hadn't watched him before, I mean, I guess if they were going down a weird rabbit hole, but if they could see, I would just show them some clips and talk about the impact. So, the thing with the Hall of Fame, it's not just a numbers thing, it's a feel thing, and was this guy one of the best players at his position for an extended period of time? That's the question I always ask myself when I talk about, is someone a Hall of Famer? Did I consider them to be, the best or one of the top guys at their spot for more than, a season, more than a one-hit wonder? And Troy was unquestionably that, and that's what it comes down for me, and I believe the voters are going to be able to recognize that pretty easily.
The good thing is when you do look at his awards and accolades, 2-time Super Bowl champion, 8-time Pro Bowler, a 4-team first team All-Pro, a 2-time second team, and then that NFL Defensive Player of the Year award should be, if there's any question anybody has about Troy Polamalu, nearly just seeing that NFL Defensive Player of the Year award on his resume from 2010, that should be enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean he should be first ballot. We agree on that.
Oh yeah, I'm just setting up. I'm just trying to set you up for what if.
Yeah.
You know.
Now, what about Faneca? Do you think? I know it's kind of hard to think about it this early. What Faneca's chances for next year? Do you think next year's finally the year?
Yeah, I do. I mean, obviously, I thought this year I mean, you saw it. I had the post all written. I'll give people a look behind the curtain. I wrote up on Saturday morning a post, a very detailed post. I ended up using most of it for him not getting in, but I had a very detailed post written for Alan Faneca getting in this year. That's how sure I was that he was going to get in. Now, of course, I cheated once he didn't get the call from the Hall and used a lot of that same thing in the post for him not getting in. But that's how sure I was. And when you look forward to next year, I don't think there's any offensive linemen that are going to jumble up the group, right? Of first ballot guys at least.
Yeah, it's like Troy, Patrick Willis, I think, are the two big names. I believe I'm missing one. Reggie
Wayne.
Okay, Reggie Wayne. Okay.
Is the other one. So if we're talking about offensive linemen, if one offensive lineman is to get in next year, I don't see how it's not Alan Faneca. Because, and quite honestly, and like I said, because Kevin Mawai got in, that should, because of his long resume, I mean, a guy like Tony Baselli, theoretically, Tony Baselli, how many years did he play in the league when you X out his injured years?
Mm-hmm. Didn't have as long a career, but we know that Hutchinson and Baselli both got in the top 10 last year along with Faneca, so we can believe that Faneca is the guy. But I'm sure in Minnesota they're saying it's Hutchinson. I'm sure in Jacksonville they're saying it's going to be Baselli. So it's like, had Hutchinson and Baselli been the first five guys eliminated, if Faneca and Mawai had been top 10, then I would have agreed with you wholeheartedly. But because they're all in that jumbled mix, I don't know how it's going to play out.
Well, my argument back to you once again is because Mawai got in, because of that long, lengthy resume of his, that's going to play more in the favor with the voters with Faneca than it will Baselli and Hutchinson, and it should at this point. I mean, it really will be. I mean, you could call Faneca not getting in a snub this year. I'm disappointed, like the rest listening to this podcast and all like that. But I guess I'm not as upset because I know he's going to get in. As strange as that doesn't make it right. But you want to get mad next year? You get mad if a guy like Baselli or Hutchinson goes in over Faneca. Then you get mad, and I'm basing that only off of Kevin Mawai getting in this year. So,
were you surprised Ty Law made it? That was the only one that I was a little surprised by.
Yeah,
I guess Mawai too, but that's the only one even after the fact. I'm like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, well, I never get these five right, so I guess I would be a little bit more slanted. Champ Bailey. I guess when you go back and look at the resumes of each of them, from the accolades standpoint, make no mistake about it. Some of these guys in that room, Alex, are on the AP All Pro, board of 50. So if you're voting these guys, if you're on that same group of people that voted in, if you are in both groups, in other words, you're an AP All-Pro voter, all right, and if you're also on the Hall of Fame selection committee, if you voted a guy first team All-Pro several years during his career, how are you not going to vote for him to be in the Hall of Fame, right?
Well, I assume most of those guys had Faneca on an All-Pro ballot at some point.
Right.
You can only do five. You got to make a choice. Most of these guys were All-Pro at some point.
And some people will say, well, do they need to? Should there be limit? Should there be a limit of five? In other words, if 10 deserve to go in, should 10 go in?
I'm okay with the limit of five. What I want to see? I want to see the vote. I want to see the vote tally like in baseball. I want to know how close some of these guys are getting.
I think that would be good. So you would know where outsiders who wanted to spend the time, like myself, would be able to apply pressure to. Or try to lobby or politic or however you want to say it, that would certainly be nice.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'll tell you this. I mean, there's no, Hall of Fames are going to be forever criticized. This guy get in. The worst one is and I know you could give two whatevers about it. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has become a joke. And
Yeah.
it really has. I mean, what a huge joke that is. And I've just gotten disgusted with their process over the course of the last 10 years. And several people probably listen to this know what I mean as well, too, for if they're longtime music aficionados. Look, there's no perfect process. I don't have a problem with only 5 or so getting in. A year plus a selection committee, because you want to make it kind of an elitist kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just want to let everybody in every time, in my opinion. But I think some of them need their hands twisted on a couple of these guys.
And with the senior committee and stuff, there's always more than 5 that get in anyway.
Sure.
So, you end up getting 6 or 7 a year.
Look, real quick, Gil Brandt. I think Gil Brandt, really as a contributor, I think he deserved to be in. But on the same thing, if a guy like Gil Brandt gets in, how long until Bill Nunn gets in?
Nunn should be in, but I don't think it's going to happen, which is a crime. For Hines Ward, is this hurt? I think Hines Ward's chances are even worse now, and I was never optimistic about it in the first place.
I mean, it's not good. I mean, not in my life.
He's not getting in next year.
He's not getting in next year. And then you got all these other receivers coming in behind them. Steeler fans don't like to hear it. And I've said this in the past as well too. There was a time, I don't know, 10 years ago, however many years ago, 15. I would have fought you that Hines Ward was going to get in, and maybe a first ballot guy at that. I've gotten smarter over the years, I think, if that's possible, and I've come to the conclusion now that he might not even make it in at all. I mean, he was never a first team All-Pro, right?
I believe so. You were smarter because you're listening to me. I've been making this case and then getting yelled at since day one about it. 2020, he's not making it next year. 2 years from now, Calvin Johnson's on the ballot. Johnson's getting in. A year after that, Steve Smith, Andre Johnson, Reggie Wayne's going to be there. Isaac Bruce is there. Good luck, Hines. I'm sorry. I love you. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, you look at how far down he's down that reception and receiving yards list, and the guy. I mean, you got to put Isaac Bruce in before him.
I mean, Bruce has been a finalist, so it sounds like Bruce will get in before him if Bruce gets in, which might not even be a guarantee.
He better hope Bruce gets in in soon, and then a guy like Reggie Wayne,
Yeah.
Some of these guys are going to have to go in before Hines gets in, and that he's been part of that wide receiver log jam for quite some time now, and he was never. He was a 3-time second-team All-Pro. All right, he was a 4-time Pro Bowler. 2-time Super Bowl champion. Obviously, the 1-time Super Bowl MVP. I don't know if that's got to be enough, Alex. Not.
I mean, because you agree that Calvin Johnson will get in before Hines Ward, right? I think the answer is an easy yes. I think he's a first ballot guy.
How many time was he a first? Look, first team All-Pro means a bunch in this thing. Like it or not, it means a lot.
Well, I mean, Calvin Johnson had a shorter career because he retired at 30. I mean, he still made some first pro teams.
He was a 6-time Pro Bowler, 3-time first team All-Pro, a 1-time second team All-Pro, 2-time NFL receiving yards leader. Hines can't say that. NFL reception leader in 2012, receiving touchdown leader in 2008, and NFL record 1,964 receiving yards. And his resume looks a lot better than Hines does.
Yeah, I think it's no question. And then I think Steve Smith and Andre Johnson will and should get in before Hines Ward. So, that's 2 years away or 3 years away. And by then, Ward's going to be in a really tough spot.
I mean, using him being a great blocker is just not good enough.
Yeah. I don't, like I said before, I think honestly Ward's best chance is to come on the senior committee, which will be eligible in 2036.
Wow, that when you do that podcast, remember the conversations because I'll be dead by it.
No, I like your chances. But honestly, I think his impact of the blocking and the gritty stuff will carry more weight 20 years from now than it is today, when I assume 20 years from now it's going to be a kind of a different game. where you might not have kickoffs, and we probably won't have kickoffs, and the game might be softer, and people will look back on this physical tone of a more fondly, more nostalgia. But he's not getting in conventionally. I say, well, there's a 0% chance he gets in on the normal ballot.
All right, for those of you that want to help Dave out with this whole Donnie Shell research project, I need to get his full stat line, and that is so tough to do. I'm having to scour old box scores and all like that. The thing I need help on, if any of you want to help on, I need to know games that you know for sure Donnie Shell forced a fumble in. Okay? I need to know games that you for sure know throughout Donnie Shell's career that he forced a fumble in. And I don't want, I think this, I think that. I want to know the games that you know that he truly forced a fumble in. That'll help. That'll give me some good starting point in this. You can send that to theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. Like I said, it's not going to be an overnight process with this, but I'm going to start doing my best. And at one point, I think I'll have a designated website up for it as well, too. But I kind of thought over the weekend that I should probably make it one of my life's goals to help get Donnie Shell in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So I'm going to take that upon myself, but I'm going to need some help doing it along the way as well, too. So with that, let's kind of transition into another topic here.
Yep. No, I love the show stuff, though. I'll definitely help you out and do what I can. But to present-day Steelers, Antonio Brown doing his AB thing. I know that there was the Looking For report about him wanting to be traded. I don't even believe the first report, so I'm not going to necessarily believe the second report about it. But he did tweet, AB did, in his very cryptic way. Let me get the exact tweet just for my professionalism's sake, I guess. He says, this is 17 hours ago, Steeler Nation, retweet if you AB in Pittsburgh. I'm reading that directly. Retweet if you AB in Pittsburgh. I assume that means want AB to stay in Pittsburgh. And people do, but that's what AB's doing. He's crowdsourcing his 2019 future.
Yeah, I mean, look, five and a half more weeks. That's all I can say about that. And about the Locking For report on Sunday, it's magical how all these reports on. They have this new information on AB and Le'Veon Bell, and they get it during the week, and they sit on it, and they wait until Sunday to spring it on us. We know that doesn't happen in today's news cycle. So I don't know how much anybody should believe about Brown recently reiterating his trade demands to the Steelers through agent Drew Rosenhaus. Look, when you read this, just because it comes from an ESPN or a CBS or an NFL Network report, you got to be skeptical of it, folks. And that's where Alex and I and Steelers Depot try to come in a little bit at it and try to wade through the garbage, or at least to let you know what we think is more speculation than news. And I think right now you have a lot more speculation than news. You have a lot of might, maybe, and possible and could and all like that.
Mm-hmm.
And those are in no way definitives whatsoever. With this thing with AB, I'll say what I say all the time. We'll see. We've got 5.5 more weeks. And someone said, with the timeline with his $2.5 million signing bonus or roster bonus that he's due, a few days after starting new league year. No, you don't have to trade him before paying that. It's just that's the more ideal time frame would be in those few days after starting the new league year until he's due that roster bonus, because you don't want to pay the guy the roster bonus as he goes out the door and have to eat that against your cap, and it's only $2.5 million. So no, you should not make a decision based only for saving $2.5 million. But there is a little bit of incentive to get it done during that time. Now, is it going to kill you to maybe wait? If you don't like the offers that you're getting, maybe right now up until that point, to pay him that and then sit around and wait until right before the draft. I mean, obviously you would think that he would be traded, somewhere before the draft. If not, if he makes it to the draft, there's no reason to think that he's not going to make it longer at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're it's not about necessarily that you have to trade him before that roster bonus kicks in, but I think as an organization, you make a decision before that roster bonus kicks in. Either A, we're keeping him, or B, we're going to start moving him. We're going to start talking to teams, and with the goal of doing it before the bonus. Now, we're not going to guarantee that because we're not going to make a deal unless the deal is right, but I think that's the deadline for when the team, in a week or two before that, but that's when you have to really make your decision as a franchise and say, is they be part of our future or not? So, like you said, we'll see. We'll go through all this, and hopefully the noise will quiet down a little bit because I'm definitely tired of talking about it. But one storyline that we're talking about again a little bit, and I don't really have a whole lot new information to shed on it, and really neither does this report, but ESPN's Adam Schefter is saying the Steelers are still considering using the transition tag on Le'Veon Bell. I know we've discussed this point before, Dave. Neither of us are crazy about it, but it certainly is still within the realm of possibility that it does happen.
Yeah, and once again, it's not a definitive report. May, could, might.
Right. Still considering.
Yeah,
either way.
Yeah, I might not make it to the next. We're all day to day, right?
Did you see what Andrew Whitworth said after the Super Bowl? He said, "At the end of the day, we're all dead," or something. That's
kind of morose, right?
Yeah, he's 37. That's just poor guy.
Yeah, you got to wonder how much time he's got left in this league too. You know?
Maybe one more year.
Maybe one more year for him.
Tough.
Look, the thing with Le'Veon Bell, you don't get compensation if you lose him. Now, you should never make a decision of what to do with the player merely because of what you think may or may not happen with the compensatory draft picks. So it's easy to talk about the whole, well, if you let him walk, you get third round value as far as compensatory. It's an easy way to put it into a category, but you should not make a decision on Le'Veon Bell solely because of that. You should transition tag Le'Veon Bell if you really think that A, you've got a good chance of matching the offer, that offer sheet that he would get. B, you think you might be able to trade him under a transition tag, which good luck with that. And I've said, I hope you didn't miss the episode where I told you where the problems lie in that. You'd be silly, in my opinion, to trade for a high-profile player on a transition tag because they don't even have. They can still test other offers out there unless you blow them away with an offer before the start of free agency. So, it makes no sense, in my opinion, to trade for a transition tag player. You let a team transition tag him, and then you go after him with an offer sheet, and then it becomes a black and white situation there. So somebody email me the last time a player under wearing a transition tag was traded there. So I don't think that's a possibility. Now it comes back to, once again, where is the running back market at right now as far as guaranteed money goes, and is it worth tying up whatever the transition tag amount ends up being? Is it going to be $9 million? Is it going to be $14.544 million? Whatever it is it going to be worth tying up that cap money from the date where they can, start tagging to the date where, however long into free agency it takes to decide whether or not you're going to have Le'Veon Bell? Where is it worth all that? And you might still lose him anyway because of the way Steelers do contracts and if I'm Le'Veon Bell, I hope the Steelers transition tag me, to be quite honest with you.
Really? Why is that?
Because people are going to have to pony up a better deal to pry him away with more guaranteed money up front.
Yeah, I think the only reason you transition him is if you believe his market isn't nearly as good as he thinks it is, and you think you can get him for that below market value, maybe even less than what you offered him in the past. But yeah, if you want to even explore the idea of bringing Bell back, let him test free agency, and you can negotiate with him with the rest of the other 31 teams and see if you could do something there. If Bell truly wants to stay in Pittsburgh, like it's been kind of hinted at by some guys that know him, then maybe that's a possibility. But to do the transition tag, where teams can structure the deal not with a poison pill, but just like you said, structure it differently than the way the Steelers like to do business. I just don't see much of a point.
I don't see. Look, with his attitude and all as well too. Who would? Yeah, he's you'll never hear me not say, and I keep having to put this disclaimer out there, that he is one of, if not the most talented running backs in the league. But you got to take his attitude into consideration, his diva-ness into consideration. Is that enough? And what it's probably going to take to keep him in Pittsburgh, is that enough for you to do so in a running back fungible NFL league when you have guys like James Conner and Jalen Samuels behind him? Just hearing Rooney talk, Art Rooney II talk after the season, talk about, we got a couple of guys, we know we got a couple of guys that we think we can move forward with, and James Conner and Jalen Samuels. It just makes me even more shocked to see the Steelers transition tag Le'Veon Bell. But as we caution now, or should be cautioning with big decisions such as this, let's not talk in definitives, because Lord knows the NFL reporters aren't. Don't completely rule it out. But I'll put it this way: I'll be surprised if they do transition tag Bell.
February 19th is the first day they can put a tag, transition or franchise, and the deadline is March 5th. So we'll have our answer no later than March 5th, but probably usually a couple days before, usually when teams do a tag, right?
Yeah, it kind of depends.
Week or so.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously have to do it before the deadline. I mean, I'm not sure you run out right at when the tag deadline opens and throw the transition tag on Bell.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Don't expect it to happen on February 19th. Expect it to happen closer to March. All right, Dave. I think we'll wrap the Bell stuff up because it's all just endless speculation. I know that the Super Bowl is over, but the bets don't stop. Dave, talk about our friends over at MyBookie.
Yeah, and the Super Bowl is over, and hopefully you got in and took advantage of their great offer at mybookie.ag and made you a little bit of maybe extra spending money over the weekend there. Just because football season is over doesn't mean that you should not be using mybookie.ag. I mean, if you're into hockey, if you're into, we're getting into Final Four territory, right? March Madness. In fact, the next kind of probably promotional offer that we're going to be able to offer our listeners from mybookie.ag will be related to the Final Four and March Madness. I know a lot of people listening to this podcast aren't just football specific. So if you're into all that, if you know a little bit more about college basketball than most, then why not try to make a little bit of extra money with it? So look forward to a new promotion coming from mybookie.ag. In the meantime, get signed up and take advantage of the promotion they have going now, where they'll match 50% of your deposit bonus right now if you sign up your first deposit and use the promotional code terrible. That's terrible. With MyBookie, you bet, you pay, you get paid quickly, and you win. So it's better to bet with somebody that you know a lot about, that you trust, and mybookie.ag is that online site to do that.
Absolutely, Dave. All right, good stuff from them as always. Let's close things out with some reader emails. I know we have a lot. I think we should do a couple today. We'll save some stuff for Wednesday. We're going to do our usual Monday, Wednesday, Friday this week, I believe, and then we'll transition to our off-season Tuesday, Friday schedule next week, so we don't have to get to every reader email today. But what do we got for us, Dave?
Yeah, and folks, look, I'm looking one from Chris Golby here. It's just too long to try to get read and all here. So we'll try to read the shorter ones here. Let's see. Andy W. writes in, quick shout out to Alex for his Edelman MVP pick. Won me a nice amount of cash. There you go. Hey. So evidently he took advantage of MyBookie and took your advice right there, and that was some nice odds. What was it? What were the odds on Edelman? Do you remember? Was it 20-1?
I don't remember. He wasn't in the top 4 or 5 though. Yeah, I had the Patriots winning by 10. I had the under, and I had Edelman. So I should have bet, and I expect a commission from you, my friend, for a job well done.
There you go. Michael Cantwell writes in, hello, I was wondering what position you think the Steelers will target in the first round, and also what do you think of Sean Davis, Terrell Edmonds, and Terrell Edmonds be our backup safeties? Look, you didn't draft Terrell Edmonds or Sean Davis at this point right now to be your backup safeties. They're your starters right now, and I don't think that's going to change in 2019. Now, as far as what position we think they're going to target in the first round, you could go inside linebacker, you could go cornerback, you could go edge rusher. One of those three picks, and depending on what happens with Antonio Brown, you might be able to throw wide receiver into that bunch there. But I think I will be surprised if it's not one of those 3 or 4 positions, and you can make good arguments for any one of them. And the thing about Kevin Colbert is right before, when free agency starts and all, they usually try to address all perceivable holes with some level of free agent there. So we're probably going to see another, you talk about safety of Morgan Burnett, or a dime backer. You're probably going to see something there in the terms of maybe a linebacker, dime backer during free agency. You're probably going to see a cornerback at some way, shape, or form. Maybe an outside linebacker here. But just because they add via those 3 positions, don't rule out them addressing those positions early in the draft. But I think those 3 or 4, and I think you would agree, Alex.
Yep, I think you said it well, Dave.
All right, Kalen Clark writes in, hello, my name is Pernell. Oh, this is Callan Clark. How many more adequate seasons can be expected from Joe Hayden? Which rookie between Washington and Edmonds makes the biggest jump from? That's a good question. Which rookie between Washington and Edmonds makes the biggest jump from year 1 to year 2? How important will each player be to the respective side of the ball? First of all, Joe Hayden, you got to go year by year by him. I mean, I think he's got 1, maybe 2 good years left in him.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Which rookie between Washington and Edmonds? Man, you would think Washington would be the one to make the bigger jump.
Yeah, if only because he's coming from a farther place than Edmonds. But I was really impressed with the way Edmonds handled all he had to deal with as a rookie, playing such a heavy amount of snaps defensively, playing his normal complement of snaps on special teams. And I thought he got better as the year went on, which usually you see those guys that have played a lot of football that are underclassmen, supposed to be seniors in college, tail off. And I thought he got better. Now, there's a lot of work to be done. I want to see him be more physical. I need more playmaking from him. I want to see him finish more plays. But I might go Edmonds just because I like the way that he ended the year, and I like kind of where that's going to set him up for year 2.
Michael Hunter writes in, any signs with the Steelers will add an assistant O-line coach this year? Faneca, maybe. There's really been no signs of it right now.
It doesn't sound like it. If they would have made a move, I mean, unless something comes late. Heck, on the Steelers team site, they don't even have Surratt as the offensive line coach. They still list him as the assistant. So, which I know doesn't mean a whole lot. But I hope so. I know you have to find the right guy, but it doesn't sound like it, which is unfortunate.
Gary Rodeo writes in, hey, let's see. I saw that the Steelers are rolling over some $18 million in cap space. There was a subnote that the Bills were the only team not to carry over all their cap space. What is the advantage to doing that, if any? Once again, and maybe you heard the last podcast or whatnot. The advantage of the thing of not rolling over 100% of your cap space is that's that much less money you have to 89% of it gets paid out. 89% over a 4-year span of cap money issued must get paid out to the players in cash. When you hear me or anybody else try to start confusing you talking all this cap lingo, you got to separate cap from cash dollars, okay? That's really important. When you give a guy a signing bonus, like Ben Roethlisberger is coming up on another extension here, there's probably going to be a $40 million or so signing bonus involved in that, plus whatever his first-year salary is. That $40 million is considered cash that goes into the 2019 column with Ben Roethlisberger. Now, for cap purposes, it's stretched out over, however long, we assume it's going to be a 4-year extension there. So whatever year the cash is paid in, that goes into your cash column. So, That's an important way to look at it. Make sure you separate cap versus cash, and that's why there's an advantage, a small one, just in cash expenditures of not carrying over all of your cap space. The NFLPA, make no mistake about it, they're probably going to fight pretty soon that 100% of the cap allotted dollars must be used. He goes on to write in here. Also, I'm wondering if you guys could give any tips for scouting defensive backs for this year's upcoming draft. I love going through the tape, but I'm curious to see what you guys are looking for when watching film, defensive prospects. That's good, because that's a good question, because you got to watch a lot of tape. You got to watch the replays too if you're dealing with a TV tape, because oftentimes you don't see how a defensive back functions in coverage down the field. If you get a hold of any all 22 tape on college players, that's gold when looking at defensive backs. I think you want to see, I think you want to some of the basics. You want to see how much off coverage they played versus man coverage, how they did in man coverage, jam versus man off or bail type tendencies, how quickly they're able to flip their hips, and how they're able to play the pocket with the ball in the air, how they are with the ball in the air, and do they have any ball skills? Add on to that, Alex.
No, I think you covered it really well. I would just say, how did the defense use them? Did they play just the field side? Did they play just the boundary side, the left side, the right side? Did they get any slot work? Did they travel with their top guy? So just to kind of get an idea for how the defense deployed them, so you understand how they might transition, where they might fit best, at least initially in the NFL. But yeah, you're looking for technique. You're looking for, for me in particular this year, to bring it to the Steelers. I know you're asking a more broad question, but for Pittsburgh, I'm looking for playmakers. I'm looking for guys that can play the football in the air, guys with good hands, guys that can finish plays. Obviously in Pittsburgh, you're coming off a year where you have 8 interceptions, tied for a franchise record low when you had 566 pass attempts against this year. Unacceptable. So you're looking for Pittsburgh. Even if there are good corner prospects I like, which there have been guys that I've seen this year, if they don't have a history of making plays, if they can't, they don't have good hands, they can't finish with the ball in the air, they're not going to be good fits for Pittsburgh. So if you're looking for anyone in particular, find the playmakers. That's why I like Barry Murphy from Washington so much.
All right, Matt Beatty writes in, how does Tomlin's head coaching career so far compare to Bill Cowher's tenure with the Steelers? Did Cowher ever come close to being on the chopping block, so to speak, between the 1995 Super Bowl appearance and the 2005 win? Sure he was. This is Pittsburgh. Everybody's on the chopping block. Everybody wants everybody fired every year. So yeah, I mean, look, you go back and look at those sub 500 years, you can bet that people were calling for Cowher's head. Now, how close was he really on the Rooney's chopping block? I don't think we're ever going to know the answer to that. He writes, I've been surprised at how anti-Tomlin the Steelers fan base seems to be. No, you should not be surprised at that at all, Matt. I'm assuming, Matt, you might be a little bit younger there, but don't be surprised by that. Or maybe just a portion of the fan base on Twitter, but that's probably a good guess there. People say I talk about Twitter too much, so I'm not going to go and talk about that portion of Twitter today, and how quick they are for call for his firing. And I'm just trying to figure out if this is typical of Steelers fan base historically. Yes, it is, Matt, or if somehow specific to Tomlin. And I think yes to that too. For the record, I'm a Tomlin fan, and I hope he sticks around for a while. Look, I mean, I think Alex and I have been clear on Tomlin in his future. I think it's going to take more than just a 8-8 or 7-9 2019 season and Steelers missing the playoffs for him to get fired. I really do. Now, if this 2019 really tanks it, and make no mistake about it, the division's probably going to be, a little bit tougher than it was this past year, and obviously going to have to make some West Coast runs that we'll be talking about quite a bit as well too. If this team tanks, I mean seriously tanks, then the discussion about and tanks with a high level of drama, and if we're talking about culture and drama again, then yeah, he's probably going to. They're going to be people another strong push to have him ousted in Pittsburgh. But if not, It's going to take a lot for 2019 not to be Tomlin's year. And yes, armchair GMs in Pittsburgh have been around for a long time.
I think we have a slight disagreement on what it will take for Tomlin 2019 to be his last year. I think there's still a real discussion if they go 7-9, 8-8, even 9-7, and still miss the playoffs outright. I think there's going to be a discussion there. But to answer the question, two quick thoughts. Yeah, Cowher had his problems. I mean, from 98 to 2000, 3 years without the playoffs, 7-9 in 98, 6-10 in 99, 9-7 in 2000. So that was, a longer drought streak than what Tomlin's done in his tenure. And just go on Twitter and look at all the comments from Rams fans after they lost the Super Bowl. Look at all the criticisms of McVay and Jared Goff, and you understand how not only the Steelers fan base works, but how pretty much every fan base works, where any loss is unacceptable and changes have to get made. So that's kind of par for the course, not only in Pittsburgh, but in 31 other franchises as well.
All right, from Artie writes in, since 2000, I count 5 NFL Hall of Fame coaches. Belichick, Dungy, who is already in with only 1 Super Bowl win. Coughlin, 2 Super Bowl wins should get him in. Parcells already in. Shanahan, 2 Super Bowls should get him in. Do you see Mike Tomlin getting in without another Super Bowl win? My answer would be no.
Yeah, I'm no.
Any of the rest make it from 2000 and later. Reed, he questions, we'll need to get 2 Super Bowls to get in. Right. I think you're right there. Cowher, Holmgren. Yeah, it's going to be tough for Cowher and Holmgren to get in right now, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to say no to all those guys. I think to be a Super Bowl coach, I wonder, are there any head coaches with only 1 Super Bowl win that's in? I'm sure there's somebody. But
Dungy, right?
Well, okay, yeah, Dungy. Trying to think of anybody like even not just 2000. I think generally 2 you're gonna need. I mean, 1 is possible, but it's not a guarantee. I don't think any of those get in.
Wait a minute. Hold on a minute here. Dungy. No, Dungy's 2-time Super Bowl champion.
No.
No, wait. As a player. Wait. Maybe I'm reading this wrong.
Yeah, you're confusing the heck out of me.
Yeah, that's career highlights. No, he, when was he a Super Bowl head coach?
With the Colts.
Right.
So, was that 2? He won 2 with Manning?
1. 1 with Manning, right?
Now I'm super confused in the show here. I don't
Dungy and the Colts won Super Bowl XLI over the Bears.
Or they did beat the Saints. The Saints won. I'm getting myself mixed up.
You're mixing the ones up here.
They went to 2, 1.
And what did he do in Tampa? It was Gruden that won it with
0-2. Yeah. Okay. I think we're good.
All right.
All right. That was a work.
The Buccaneers won Super Bowl, their first and only through appearance and champion. The Dungy was fired prior. Yeah, Gruden had won that one. That's where we're getting mixed up here. All right. Okay. Now that we got through that, I mean, he's in with 1. It's tough to get in with 1.
Yeah, I don't
think you can use him as a good argument for some of these other guys to get in. Talking about Dungy.
That's fair. I agree.
All right.
Yeah, that was painful.
Let's see. Derek Pantsis writes in non-AB related podcast question. Good. What are your thoughts on the Steelers' chances of making a Super Bowl next season? Do you think that we will see a more disciplined and hungry team after the drama this past season? Look, Derek, we've said it a few times on the podcast. As long as you got a quarterback, you got a good chance. And I think some of the early odds are showing the Steelers at 14-1. That's probably about right. As far as their odds go, they got to play better defense. Got that end of the year adjusted net yards per passing attempt number has to be around 5.5 to 5.8 or lower. That's it. And you have to have Ben Roethlisberger doing what he does. That's how you get in. So yeah, they have a chance. Am I Am I going to go slap down some money on that 14-1 right now? No.
Yep, and I'm with you. You look at the Patriots there, like I said, you got to improve that secondary. The offense has got to find a little more consistency. It's possible, but this is such a critical offseason for this team, no doubt about it.
Johnny DeConti writes in, love the podcast, found a few years ago and haven't stopped listening. My question, should a head coach live by the quote, tolerate or until you can replace? I personally feel like Mike player's successful absence have said BS. I, for one, had his back until this past month. When I heard that quote, I have zero support for the guy on that. Curious of your thoughts. Look, I mean, we understand people maybe one time being in a Tomlin corner, not being in there anymore based on kind of things that have transpired the last couple of years. Winning solves all that, though.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, and that's the question I was asking Chris Hoke last week was, Tomlin treats everybody fairly, but not everybody equally. And I was asking Chris, can you really treat everybody equally in that locker room? And I really think it's impossible to do. You can't treat your starting quarterback the same way you treat the 53rd guy on the roster. It's just not possible. So I understand the frustration of the whole tolerate it until they're not talented anymore, but that's literally how every team functions, even the Patriots to a degree. Don't misunderstand that either. So I think if you were in the head coach shoes, you would understand that position.
All right, one last one from David Curley writes in, and he's from Revere, Massachusetts. Is it Massachusetts or Massachusetts? He's in the Navy and just got stationed there. God bless you, David. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
A diehard Steeler fan in enemy territory. I would say you are. Probably the question on everybody's mind is, do you think the Pats tying the Steelers with 6 Super Bowls will light a fire under management, coaching, player butts to get their crap together? P.S. I can't turn down a street or walk into a store without seeing Pats wear. It's like I died in his hell. God bless you, David. Look, if you need another team having success in any form or fashion to light a fire underneath you and get you more motivated, you're doing it wrong.
Well, thank you for your service, David. But I agree. Yeah, I think the only motivation you need is your job requirement of adding a Lombardi, and you walk by 6 Lombardis every single day when you go to work in Pittsburgh, and you sit there and say to yourself, I want to be the guy that adds a 7th. And that's the motivation. If you need anything else, you're in the wrong profession.
Yeah, if you watch that Super Bowl and you're a Steelers fan last night, a Steelers player last night, you're thinking, well, that's it. The Pats have 6 now. I'm going to go from 10 to 11. I'm going to go one more louder here. If that's the line of thinking, you're doing it wrong. I'll just leave it that way. The goal every year should be the best that you can be, and the goal should be to win a Super Bowl regardless of what happens around you. But David, good question. That's a good way to end. Thank you for your service, and good luck in Revere, Massachusetts. There. All right, Alex. We'll get through Monday, Wednesday, Friday of this week, and then probably crank down into two shows a week from there. In the meantime, thanks for those questions. Keep them coming. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. You can follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause during the off season, please go to SteelersDepot.com and hit that donate button upper right navigational bar. Or if you want to donate and just by doing so get something in return, such as like an ad-free version of the site, you can go to SteelersDepot.com and hit ad-free in the upper right navigational bar as well too. For $25 for a calendar year, you can have access to Steelers Depot without all those pesky ads that you might not like. In the meantime, you can follow, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.